I spent the last 7 years making a smoothie every day, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to make the perfect smoothie. We've all been there. You've made a smoothie, but it ends up watery and bland. We want to make sure our smoothie turns out like this, so it's as thick as possible, because life's too short to eat boring food. In this video, I'll cover the basics of how to make the perfect smoothie, and after that I'll share 5 recipes that you can make today. The final one is by far my favorite, and it has one ingredient that you would not expect in the smoothie. But first you need to learn the basics of how to make the most satisfying smoothies ever. I have 2 important pillars when it comes to making satisfying smoothies. And the first one is the thickness of the smoothie. Because like I said before, we don't want to have watery smoothies, it's much more fun to make them as thick as possible. Because then it turns out that it looks a bit more like ice cream. Like I said before, a watery smoothie is not the goal here. We want to make sure our smoothie is as thick as possible because, trust me, it's going to be infinitely more delicious if you do it like that. And let's admit, as a kid, we always wanted to have ice cream for breakfast, and now you can without hurting your health. It's super important, if you do this, to make sure you use only frozen ingredients. Frozen bananas, frozen mango, frozen peach, frozen pineapple, stuff like that. If you're going to use normal fruits that are not frozen, you end up with a watery smoothie, and that's not the goal here. Also, I don't use any liquid, so only frozen fruits and nothing else. I just let the ingredients thaw for 30 minutes before blending, and then it turns out like this. If you're going to blend it straight away, obviously your blender is going to explode, so make sure to let it thaw for about 30 minutes so it's a bit easier for your blender. And also make sure that you use a blender with a power of at least 1200 watts. I'm going to discuss what blender to use, what I recommend at the end of the video, but for now that's the most important thing to keep in mind. So what fruits are the best ingredients to use for these type of smoothies? I recommend the following 4 ingredients for your smoothies. So first of all, like I said before, frozen bananas. It's what I most often use in my recipes. The great thing about bananas is they're very creamy, they're pretty affordable of course as well, and don't have a lot of color. So you can add a lot of color later on using that for food coloring or other fruits like raspberry, blueberry, stuff like that. So frozen bananas are by far my favorite, and I would always recommend using frozen bananas as the main ingredient. Frozen mango are also great to use in your smoothies. It's a bit sweeter than bananas, so it's really delicious, I think. And it also is pretty similar in terms of texture, so it also gives your smoothie that creamy texture that we're looking for. Other great options are pineapple and peach. Pretty similar, they are a bit less creamy but still super sweet, super delicious, don't have a lot of color, so you can add color later on. So I love to use them in my smoothies as well. So once the base of your smoothie is thick enough, it's time for pillar number 2, which is colorfulness. We don't want to eat a boring smoothie, like I said before. We want to make sure it's super colorful, not like a boring grayish smoothie that you sometimes see with some recipes. So we want to make sure it's as colorful as possible. And in order to do that, there are several options. What I always do, obviously, which you can see in all my videos, all my shorts, is that I add natural food coloring to my smoothies, which is basically freeze-dried fruit or plants that you basically add to your smoothie using a teaspoon. It's super simple, it's healthy, and it's really fun to use as well. There are several options here. You can use dragon fruit powder, blue spirulina powder, green spirulina powder. There are several options. In the description I'll show you all the powders that I've ever used in my smoothies and what I think works really well for these type of smoothies. So the following fruits are great add-ons to your smoothie because they make it much more colorful and vibrant. First of all, blueberries. Obviously they have a great taste, but they also give like a pinkish purple color to your smoothie, which is really nice. If you add just a couple of those, it will really help to make your smoothie much more colorful and much more delicious as well. Dragon fruit is so underrated. You can either use the pink one or the white one. They're both equally delicious. If you want to obviously make sure your smoothie is more colorful, I would go for the pink one, but it's super sweet. I really like the seeds that are in there. You can still see them in the end result of the smoothie as well because they don't get blended, which makes your smoothie look a bit more exotic, so that's quite nice. Obviously strawberry is great as well. It's super easy to get, it's very affordable, gives a pinkish reddish color to your smoothie. The taste is great, so let's admit we all love strawberries, so we have to use those as well. So like I said, strawberries, blueberries, and dragon fruit are my top 3 add-ons for smoothies. And obviously in my videos you always see me using natural food coloring, which is basically the same, but it's just freeze-dried fruit or plants. So freeze-dried dragon fruit, for example, freeze-dried spirulina, stuff like that. You just add a teaspoon of that, it adds color, it adds nutrients, and it adds fun to your smoothie as well. These powders will help turn your smoothie into all the colors of the rainbow without hurting your health. But now that we covered all the basics of making a thick smoothie, I'm going to show you 5 examples. Like I said, the final one is my favorite by far, and it has some pretty unique ingredients. This one is made from 2 frozen bananas and half a cup of frozen blueberries. I also added blue spirulina powder and dragon fruit powder,
but that's optional since it already tastes great using just the base ingredients. You can see that in my recipes I don't use any liquids. That's basically the secret to making really thick smoothies. But to make sure your blender doesn't explode, let the ingredients thaw for about 30 minutes. Then you won't need any liquids. If you do, just make sure you only use a dash of milk, for example. That way your smoothie will still be thick. Talking about blenders, let's discuss what the best blender is to use for these type of smoothies. Generally, any blender that has a power of at least 1200 watts should be able to make these recipes. If your blender has less power, you might want to let them thaw even longer or just use a little bit of milk. I personally use a Vitamix Explorer in E310 and it's the best blender I have ever used. It's so incredibly powerful. I've used it for years and it still crushes the frozen ingredients I use without any issue. But it's more than $400 I think, so it's definitely not for everyone. If you want advice on what blenders to get, you can always send me a DM, I'd love to help you. If you have been following me for a while, you know that I'm a huge dragon fruit fan. So this recipe with frozen bananas, frozen mango and frozen pink dragon fruit is one of my favorites. It's such an amazing way to start the day. It's pretty difficult to find pink dragon fruit in most countries, but you can often find the frozen version in most supermarkets. Or you can just use the powder like I mentioned before. That has the exact same taste as the actual fruit. As you can see, this final recipe includes frozen sweet potato. It's pretty uncommon in the smoothie, but it works really well. Go give it a try and happy blending.